Kaya Dark Lineage is a fantastic action platformer that completely bombed sales-wise. It's hard to find exact data, but the closest figure I've found says between 10 and 20,000 units were sold. And it's sad because this is a very, very good game. The story starts with Kaya's half-brother Frank finding a secret room within their home and opening a portal to a brand new world.
So what made you come down here? Huh?
I don't know. Just a feeling, I guess.
What the?
We'll take her to the village.
Look! It's waking up!
You wake up and immediately are being chased through this brand new world following these odd creatures, and you're thrown directly into the platforming action.
Come on, wake up!
What?
Trust me, get up now, or you're never gonna get up again. Follow me!
The game involves a lot of running, avoiding traps, using different things in your environment to make your way through traps, tricking enemies, sliding down giant water tubes. The game, while it does have some interesting exploration, is definitely a game of constant forward momentum. There's less of an open world feel than something like Jak and Daxter. It feels a lot more like stages in the earlier Crash Bandicoot games where there's a constant forward movement. One of the primary unique qualities of this game and why it is so fantastic from a gameplay perspective is the use of wind power. You'll constantly run into different wind puzzles, and one of the biggest elements is wind travel. It can be as simple as pushing you up the side of a high cliff to reach the next area, or amazing giant free falls that have you winding your way through different puzzles using the wind in different manners as you get later and later into the game. And while there is a combat focus a little bit later in the game, this is primarily, I think, the one thing that sets this apart and gives it a very unique feel is all the use of different wind power and wind abilities. It's also a very colorful game. It looks great. Has a good soundtrack, decent voice acting. It's very much an all ages affair. It's something where it has enough of a comical, family-friendly feeling to it that can be enjoyed by young kids, but it's also interesting enough and has enough dark undertones to the story, especially later on, that I feel like it'll appeal to just about anyone who enjoys platformers. It's a creative and fairly unique game, especially for the time, that while it's not the absolute best of the best, is a game that deserved a lot more attention than it got, and something that a sequel would have been fantastic to see. Ring of Red, another very early PS2 game that was completely overlooked and pretty much forgotten. Ring of Red takes place in an alternate World War II history where Japan was split into three sections: the Soviet section, the Republic of Japan, and the Democratic of Japan, Southern Japan, which is an Ally-controlled area. 20 years later, in the early 1960s, war yet again is ravaging the archipelago. The story takes place in this era and is a very gritty, slow-moving, tactical game. It takes its roots as an alternate World War II history very seriously in its presentation, both from the general art style to the color palettes and the use of actual footage mixed in with different visions of mechs on the field of war from that time period. It's a fairly interesting story, but only for those who really enjoy the concept of an alternate with mechs placed into that historical perspective. The mechs here are also very different. Usually when we think of mechs in a Japanese game, you think of something along the lines of Gundam or Zone of the Enders and that type of mech. These are more of a mech warrior type mech, something that feels more of a typical Western style. They are big, hulking, smoky. They're really just kind of tanks with legs. And the gameplay reflects that. It is a turn-based, grid-based strategy game with mechs. Very, very slow-paced. It's a game for people who would enjoy something like, think of a less complicated Nobunaga's Ambition. If you like that style of game, this is more for you. It's definitely a slower-paced strategy game. Even when you get into combat, it's very much a game of patience. But it works really well for the atmosphere and if you like this style. There are many different types of mechs, and later on you even get support crew, actual people that will travel around your mech and add different effects or different styles, fight alongside you, and they can be killed in combat. Each encounter will have a countdown, and it's a race against the clock in this slow-paced form to see how much damage you can do before the end of that encounter time. Each mech has different strengths and weaknesses, and one of them is the distance to and from your enemy. A long-distance mech, such as the main one you get in the beginning of the game, is not going to be as effective in short range. You have many different special attacks, but your basic attack is a gun barrel focus that you will wait until you get a higher percentage and try and aim your shot perfectly. The issue being, if you're hit while doing that and knocked back or knocked off guard, you will have to refocus again. You can run out of time or be hit by something else. It's very much a game of planning ahead and patient strategy. But it's the style alone and the quality of this interesting story and the fun mech gameplay and all the different variations you can have with your troops is enough to keep any strategy lover involved for hours. The next game on this list of hidden gems, Primal. Go buy it. That's all. Just go buy it. If you are a certain type of gamer, that's all you really need. Just go buy it and go find a used copy for less than $10 on eBay right now. Go find it. If you like dark, story-driven games and atmosphere and storytelling and characters are the main reason why you play games, then you will absolutely love Primal. If, on the other hand, your main focus is challenging gameplay and story is somewhat of a secondary thing that you like in games, you probably won't like Primal. Primal is, in very many ways, a highly interactive fantasy novel put into video game form, and it doesn't try and hide that. It's full of many incredibly lengthy cutscenes, some of them almost reaching Xenosaga levels, tons of voice acting, and is really a game of exploring your environments to the fullest, leading to the next story point, so on and so on. The puzzles, while creative, aren't difficult, and combat itself is more of, again, visual storytelling. It's very easy to go through make your way through combat with the different demon forms, and isn't really too much of a focus, but it's good in that way. There's never any real padding with useless enemies, unnecessarily long puzzles. The game is what it is and doesn't pretend to be anything else. It just adds combat and puzzles where needed to make it feel like a more interactive experience, and they're only used when they add to the exploration of the world itself or to the storyline. There's not a lot of just random fluff in Primal whatsoever. You start off as the protagonist Jen, leaving a nightclub with her boyfriend when they are attacked by a demon who steals her said boyfriend and knocks her unconscious. Jen wakes up in a hospital, and her adventure begins with an unusual visitor.
That was one freaky dream. This a hospital? What the hell happened? Oh my god. I'm dead? No, 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 I don't want to be dead. Things were just starting to work out. Louis and I were just... Oh my God. Louis. What happened to us? Huh? What the hell are you? A bit short for the Grim Reaper, aren't ya?
You're not dead, Jennifer, but if you don't be quiet and listen to me, you soon will be. My name is, well, let's say you can call me Scree. I've been sent to find you, to show you some very important things and to enlist your assistance.
For 2003, the presentation is incredible. It's visually striking, partially because of visual quality and primarily because of the excellent use of lighting and the dark gothic art style. Primal is amazing at creating atmosphere, both for its visuals and the remarkable soundtrack. The Prague Philharmonic Orchestra did a remarkable job here. Everything sounds spectacular. It's one of my favorite soundtracks from the early days of the PS2. While the gameplay is slightly lacking, there are some interesting elements. You can switch easily between Jen and Scree, your two characters, to solve different puzzles using one or the other, sort of, in a way, like a more interactive version of Eco's system. Scree can go around to areas that Jen cannot get to. He can even turn himself to stone. And you'll switch back and forth between the pair at will, solving different puzzles and exploring different areas. The focus, as I said, is largely the story, and the story is very well done. I will not spoil anything here, but it is a remarkably fascinating, dark journey. And the thing that could have been the make-or-break moment, because it is so story-heavy and incredibly dialogue-heavy, is the voice acting. And thankfully, it is fantastic.
I know you mortals think you're at the heart of everything, but believe me, you're not. Now please try to absorb all of this quickly. There really is no time to waste.
Okay, I'm trying. Just one thing, though. No matter where we are, you gotta stop calling me Jennifer. You sound like my stepdad.
While it doesn't have the in-depth and interesting gameplay of something like Soul Reaver 2, this game, visually and as far as the quality of voice acting, is definitely comparable to entries of the Legacy of Kain series. If you're a fan of those games, you'll probably like Primal, although go into it realizing that the gameplay will definitely be inferior to those titles. I have absolutely zero complaints with the voice acting, absolutely love it, top-notch, great script writing, lots of good humor put throughout the game, and a bonus for certain individuals, myself included, is that Jen is voiced by Hudson Leak, yes, Callisto from Xena. That alone should be enough to get some people interested. Primal is a fantastic story-driven game. Portal Runner. This is one of those games that is more fun than it really should be. It seems like a title that was a delayed PS1 or early Dreamcast game pushed onto the PS2. It doesn't push the boundaries in any way there. It has somewhat clunky controls, and it's a little goofy, but once you really get into it, it's amazingly fun, and a fantastic spin-off to the very successful Army Men franchise. This spin-off is in many ways very similar to Tomb Raider within the world of the Army Men series. It's up to reporter Vicky to save her boyfriend Sarge and save all the different toy worlds from being taken over by the main villain.
But they offer nothing of interest.
The living toy concept plays incredibly well here, as every single level from inside the toy shop to all the different worlds within different toy boxes traveled through from portal to portal creates a great reason to have incredibly varied environments, anything from prehistoric jungles to the future to very magical medieval play sets. It works very well here, better than even most of the other mainline Army Men games. It comes across as very magical and creative. The gameplay itself focuses very heavily on platforming and exploration, collecting tons of different gems, opening different secret areas. Combat is somewhat secondary, but you will use your bow with many different versions of arrows to combat enemies as well as solve various puzzles throughout the different levels.
That's my girl. Good job.
The best comparisons for this game would be take Tomb Raider. Many of the controls feel very similar. She even has a little Lara Croft swing as she's going up onto platforms. Take that control scheme, put it in a sort of Jak and Daxter style game within the Army Men universe, and you get Portal Runner. Very quickly in the game, you also get a toy lion companion who will help you out with many different puzzles through many areas, and you can even submit commands to him to have him attack different enemies or stay put and try and utilize him to get around different parts of levels.
The Queen will not be pleased. I will destroy the portal.
As I said before, the presentation won't really knock anybody's socks off. It looks and feels like it is exactly what it is, a very early PS2 game. The controls are a little cumbersome at first, but once you get used to them, there is a very fun title here. It's one of those that was completely overlooked, I think partially because of what it is, just an early spin-off to a popular series that was in its later days of popularity. And I will openly admit that it does take a couple of tries of some of the early levels to really get the hang of things and really get into it, but once you do, it is a very, very fun game that I've played through a couple of times over the years, and one I'm very happy to have in my collection.
It's going to be dark soon. Tell you what, I'm gonna see if I can find us some food, okay? I'll be back, I promise.
Gather round, all of you who would listen. I have a tale to tell. A story of warriors and kings. A saga of dark magic. A legend of high adventure.
The last game on this list is by far my favorite here, the Mark of Cree. This highly stylized action-adventure game is both brutal and elegant and highly original. Your protagonist Rao is the focus of this remarkable journey, which feels in many ways like an oral telling of a legend. It's presented as an oral storytelling from Rao's student, talking about the almost mythical exploits of his master. Visually, the game is astounding. I absolutely love the art style, and that's part of what makes it, at least I feel, a timeless game. Games that tend to age better as generations of consoles come and go are ones that take a very artistic perspective rather than a very realistic perspective, which it relies so much on the technology of the time. As soon as the next stage of graphics comes out, it already looks outdated. But with a game like this, the beautiful hand-drawn cutscenes, it looks like art coming to life as they progress, with the fantastic narration. The voice work in this game is brilliant. So many of the characters are brought to life by their voice acting, and the almost cartoonish style of the character animations was a very interesting choice that you would think at first might clash with the bloody, brutal nature of the game, but it actually works incredibly well and gives it a very fun flair. The game can be dark and brooding, bright and colorful. Its visuals are heavily influenced by Polynesian, Aztec, and New Zealand cultures, which is something that is fairly rare, especially in an era where we tend to see lots of either East Asian or Greek and Roman mythology, Norse. There tends to be a lot of those. You don't see a lot of focus on things outside of that. It helps add to its unique visual style and flair that makes it a real standout title. I mentioned the voice acting, but the music is also of a high caliber, and just visually and the sound design overall in this game is absolutely outstanding. The story, as I said, is presented as a narrative and really feels like the retelling of a legend and gives it a sensation of sitting by a campfire listening to his older man tell of the legends of his master. And the atmosphere of that style of telling makes it an enthralling narrative. Of course, in a game like this, the most important element is the gameplay, and here it shines just as brightly. While wielding one of the many weapons of the game, starting off with your sword, moving on to a bow, and later far more varied weapons you can easily switch to and from on the fly, you rotate the right analog stick to highlight different opponents as you go by, and each one of them is assigned a button, either square, circle, or X. And instead of having just a direct attack button, you press the corresponding button to any of your targets and you will attack that target. Various button combinations will unlock dozens of different combinations, and even attacking back and forth, switching opponents constantly. It gives it a very interesting, fluid, artistic flair. Everything feels very stylized and smooth and graceful, while still feeling very guttural and physical and brutal. The blocking mechanic, by holding down R1, fits right in. You can block forward or back, and you can easily move from different stance, from person to person, from weapon to weapon. Everything flows very smoothly throughout the entire game. It feels very fluid, moving from scene to scene. You can also attack barehanded, and there are different combos using that, including unarming one of your foes and throwing their weapon into them for an instant kill. While the main protagonist is a beast of a hero, he's also not a godlike being like someone like Kratos, and in some situations it can be better to take a more stealthy approach. And this mix of stealth and stylized combat and brutal hand-to-hand moments, sometimes fighting 10 to 20 people later in the game, really keeps the game from becoming super repetitive. The stealth mechanics are also fascinating. Using the same targeting system as regular combat, you can also press up against walls, sneak up around people, do sneak attacks on up to 2 unsuspecting victims at once. Another element is the puzzle solving, where you will use your spirit guide Cusco to take a literal bird's eye view and scout out areas in front of you, help solve different puzzles. It's really important, especially in later levels when things get very difficult and you have to rely on a balance of sneaking up and stealth attacks as well as face-to-face combat, to use your bird vision wisely to plan ahead as you move through levels, plus reach secret areas, grab things like save scrolls that you can't physically reach yourself. And planning ahead also adds other elements of strategy to the game, such as seeing individuals that might have warning signals or horns to call reinforcements and trying to kill them stealthily before approaching the pack itself. Everything about this game is absolutely fantastic, and is a game that I feel should be considered a modern classic that is seemingly forgotten. Thankfully, though, this game did get a sequel, and we'll be talking about that in the next video.
Cleaning the floor and washing dishes. Ha! This was not the kind of work my master was looking for. He was young and in search of adventure, freeing the land from murderous bandits. Now that was a job worthy of a warrior. He left that same day, his sword strapped to his back. Kuzo, his spirit guide, scouting the path ahead. The bandits had been terrorizing the local roads for months now. Rao had heard that they were camped out in some local ruins. He had also heard that they were many in number and skilled as swordsmen. Good. Good. My master did not want this to be too easy.